Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I am your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest has an MSEE in Electronic Circuits and Systems and a BS in Computer Engineering, both from UCSD. He is the author of several papers in the communication and electronics field and is well known for his work in the San Diego high technology industry, awarded several patents in the free space optical laser communications field while serving as vice president of engineering at LightPoint Communications, Inc. His research then shifted to look into mankind's earliest technologies and accomplishments, including the cultures of Mesopotamia and the surrounding areas of Turkey, Egypt, Persia, and Iraq, eventually leading to the cuneiform inscribed tablets left by the Sumerians. He is the author of the Annunaki of Nibiru and the seventh planet Mercury Rising. Welcome to the show, Gerald Clark. What's up, brother?
Buddy. Hey, thanks for having me. You have to ask yourself, what's an electrical engineer doing talking about this kind of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, well, we touched base a while ago. I'm excited to have you on the show because your background is diverse. You know, I picked up right away. You're really smart. You're working on, I don't know, like shooting protons through a wall or like something crazy for IBM, and then you shift, into ancient technologies. And, I just got back from Egypt with Nassim Haramein, and there was some electrical engineers there, and they were talking about the materials and things like that. So it's
wow. So you went to Egypt with Nassim Haramein? No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm jealous, just so you know, because I actually want to meet him. He's a very, actually one of my close friends is a big fan of his. And he's off in Bali. I think you might have seen him on my Facebook page where we did the Decoders of Truth, the Annunaki series. Remember Zecharia Lang?
Yeah.
He's a big fan of Nassim Haramein's. And I never got to meet him. I was in Hawaii. Somebody told me, go meet Nassim. And I don't know. It's like our paths keep going like this, but one of these days.
Yeah. It would have been great to have you there. For me, I read. You have such amazing content on YouTube, and I've seen some of your interviews, in depth with Rex Bear, just mind blowing. So I get to kind of observe in Egypt people like you piecing together, like, what the heck? How do you move a 200-ton laser cut stone? What is the function of this? Why is it on a plateau with different stones? I didn't even realize that they had the casing stone that was a different material. So
yeah, I think they were granite. The outside was granite, and the other stuff was different stones. But yeah, it's amazing, huh? So you got some good pictures and some videos and everything while you were there? Okay.
Yeah, I got some good pictures and videos, and they're going to be releasing something too. They brought a film crew, and he was talking about the arc crystal. So, it was pretty mind blowing. Do you want to give people like a little bit about your backstory and like how you got into this? Because I think it's fascinating. And then I know you have a lot of depth, so just take it wherever you want to go and what you feel inspired to talk about now.
Okay. I've told the story a lot of times, but maybe each time as time goes on, you go through different filters, and you might see a different venue that you could present it and not tell it exactly the same way. So we did this off the cuff today, so hopefully that'll happen. It was a very circuitous path to the Anunnaki for me, or finding out about this. I was raised religious. I actually was raised to be in a discipleship program where I was actually the one who was at the lectern. Okay, that's how in depth they drew me in before I was even 17. So I kind of had a lot of hurdles to overcome in terms of what the truth was, and I was always about the truth, actually. And as a young person, I had thoughts about things that I didn't realize were very deep and that would lead me to electrical engineering eventually. And one of those was to differentiate between the self and the not self. In other words, what's the energy part and what's the meat host part, and how do those two work together? Just in simple terms. And I know you're an athlete and you understand there are various layers of knowing in the human body, right? A physiologist might know it from all the Latin names and its parts, but may not understand the feeling of being in that body when the tensors and the flexors are being pushed to the limit, where you find balance on a snowboard or a bicycle, riding on the side of a cliff with mud, all those kind of situations you can find yourself in as a triathlete, for instance. And so in that space, I bumped into a guy who had discovered structural integration, led me to it. I had a kid who had problems. I went to learn how to do it, to share it with them. One thing led to another, and I met somebody who had read the same kind of stuff I had. And it turned out he was kind of a mystical guy in Hawaii. And I respected him. I was one of those people, I didn't take things that weren't scientific from other people if I really didn't have a relationship with them, trust with them. I had to prove it to myself, so I was kind of hard-headed that way. And one of those was he stumbled on, he was always into structure work and things like this, and he was reading esoteric stuff. And one day, the idea of him talking about a colloidal solution of gold that he was taking and what it was doing to his meditations and stuff, I was like, wow, really? What are you into? And one thing led to another, and that in my readings, I had discovered in Laurence Gardner's book, which one was it? The Genesis of the Grail Kings, where he was talking about the find at Hathor's temple, where they had discovered quote unquote starfire gold in that underneath one of the stones in the floor. It was this white talcum-like powder. They had pictures of the priests and the attendees making it into conical little bread cakes, like a Hershey's Kiss kind of shape, and then consuming this thing. Okay. And we're like, well, what is this? And one thing led to another. I read David Hudson's patent, trying to put some meat on the bones of what is this stuff that these people were making. Because you realize Hathor's temple is on Mount Serebet El Qadim, which is what the locals consider Mount Sinai. Well, this is where Moses had the encounter with Yahweh and supposedly got the 10 Commandments in Exodus 32:20, right in there. So this was a trip to me to read this in Laurence Gardner's book about starfire gold. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, who's this Hathor? And I'd been to Turkey and I'd started to look at the Hittites and what was going on at Göbekli Tepe. And they're like, who were these people 9,000 years ago? And I'm starting to put all the pieces together, right? Well, when I discovered Laurence Gardner and Zecharia Sitchin and Erich von Daniken and all those guys, I was actually fascinated. It stopped me from writing my book on ancient technology, and I looked into everything they had written to see where I should land. And because of that, I didn't land, okay, let's be at the place where we're presenting cuneiform tablets and everybody's going, yeah, you translated it right or not. No, I didn't want to be at that place to start, because I saw what happened to everybody who had an ancient text that was trying to present it as a translation. They got the axe, right? Oh, it doesn't say that. Oh, you got this one wrong, so the whole thing's wrong, like that. Well, that's ridiculous, okay? So anyway, I got George Smith's book, and it was called the Chaldean Genesis, and he wrote this in 1871. And he was actually one of the archaeologists that went to the Middle East and went to Nineveh and these various sites and got cuneiform tablets, brought them back to the British Museum and started decoding them. And not only did they find the tablets, tens of thousands of them, but they also found dictionaries and lexicons on how to do Sumerian cuneiform. So they had a ladder to stand on in decoding, okay? And many students were doing their PhD in, I guess you would call it Assyriology, which was essentially converting cuneiform text into English or whatever language they're working in. One of them that I found was from the University of Pennsylvania in 1909. They had gone to Babylon, brought back about 100 copies of the tablets, basically high quality photos. And then they took those and the students were decoding them as part of their PhD projects to see what they say. So I looked at all these disparate sources and I finally realized I could go with the online version from the University of Oxford, who's taking these digitization of these cuneiform tablets and giving them to people online. And these are highly credentialed scholars, including people like Stephanie Dalley, who wrote the myths from Mesopotamia. And so I started there, and this was research for me, Matt, for a while, and not thinking it was going to go anywhere, but leading me to how did they do this advanced technology stuff? And the next thing I find out is the stories of the Sumerians believing that, hey, these Anunnaki that came here, that's what they called them. They not only made us genetically, down in South Africa in the mines, but we got no problem with it. We were made to serve them, and that's what we do. It's us that are just finding this out going, what? We what? Like that. They had no problem with it whatsoever. What do you think about that?
Being genetically modified. The first thought is I don't like it. I'd like to. Where does that lead into like free will? And it's what I find fascinating, because people new to this, that's what you say. When I'll say that to someone, I was like, hey, I've been kind of researching for stuff, and it looks like a lot of these leaders are saying we were genetically modified from the Anunnaki, from an alien species. And Michael Tellinger's book is Slave Species of the Gods. I guess he even found the pods, and it's like you and Tellinger and all these people, nobody's disputing that. It's in the cuneiform tablets, like everyone's like on that page, and then they move forward, and that's a huge pill to swallow, like originally, but you found it through research. And when you go back, it's kind of like, okay, so where does that leave us for free will and moving into a place where we live an abundant, happy life? Or that's kind of where my goal is.
We might have to save that part for the end. We all want to go back to the Garden of Eden and live in utopia, don't we? It's like innate in us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, across the planet, it's like that. Before we do that, let's just talk about a little conceptual context for all this to have occurred. From my understanding now, as looking into the Anunnaki, they came from an ancient race in the Aldebaran, I can't ever say it, constellation. And they were considered what Paul Hellyer calls the tall whites. Okay, these are the Nordic blonde-looking species that were quite tall. They had a long history before they ever got to be called the Anunnaki, okay? They apparently were involved in what's called the Lyran Wars. They were dispersed to an area. They ended up taking part of the galaxy for themselves, which included multiple areas, including the Pleiades, or the Orion constellation, and the Draco, I believe, Alpha Draconis. So these were grouped together, and the beings that came from there were eventually called the Anunnaki, but they're a mix of races, okay? This is the crazy part. Part of the races there were apparently Alpha Draconis. They were the Dracos that we have pictures of, the devil with the tail and the horns. Well, apparently they look like that, and some of them have wings and can fly, as amazing as that is. So this is where the story started coming up. Well, the Anunnaki must be reptilian. Well, it actually goes back to their original source in the threat briefing document that I released, wherever this person got this information. Their original race had reptilian blood. Now, does that mean they look like a lizard? No. It means when the sun hits your skin or your pineal gland, that it can regulate the color of your skin, and you can take in energy from the sun and convert it into your energy as a biological species. That's a really great thing, don't you think? Everybody should want that. Like if you're out hiking, you're like, I don't have a granola bar here, dude. I'm gonna have to stop and get some sun because I need some energy. Well, that's what they have the ability to do. I think it's an incredible advanced tech thing for a biological species, a meat host, to be able to do that if you can take in light and produce energy. Imagine it could sustain you for a very long time. So I personally would like that. So when I hear people go, the Anunnaki are reptilian, I'm like, well, okay, well, I want that. I used to really like lizards and things as a young person. And I was fascinated how they could change their color and go dormant for a long time, not eat. I mean, they were just, what a survival species, So that being said, let's be generic about who the Anunnaki are. They're an ancient astronaut race of galactic colonizers, and they didn't do it just to this planet, okay? I'm talking all over the galaxy. Now, let's be more generic. So you have a planet that has some resource. Let's just call it a resource. I don't care if it's gold or DNA from the species that are there, or just whatever, okay? Or all the precious metals. Whatever the resource is, they have a method for getting it, okay? And either the planet is occupied or it's not occupied. If it's not occupied, it's easy. You just go there and it's greenfield, right? But if it's occupied, they generally avoid going to war, these advanced species. They don't just go in and go, here's my big club, I'm going to bash you to the head and take your resource. They don't do it that way. They're much more sophisticated, okay? So imagine the planet had a biological life form. And some people say that there were, if you read the Lacerda files, okay, some people say there were reptiles that evolved consciousness on this planet. Okay, now that's possible. I don't know. I can't refute that. In the Atlantean story, it was talking about in 80,000 years ago that there were races of people that were black as well. So there were mixed races all over the planet, and it looks like they were intermingled in various cultures, even though we've been lied to about that. Well, just suppose there was a reptilian species that evolved on this planet. The Anunnaki, as galactic colonizers, came here and said, "Oh, look at those resources," and these on the planet said, "Hey, no, we evolved here. This is our planet, right?" And they had some conflict. There are some indications that that might be true. But for an advanced species like the alien grays from the Merkaba Foundation or the Anunnaki, they're experts at finding a planet, even if it's occupied, and knowing how to colonize it. And they had tablets mentioned in the Sumerian documents about how to colonize planets, and they called them their MEs, capital M, capital E. And Enki himself held these divine tablets for civilizing, okay, and rolling out civilization on a planet. So one of the key things they would do is if there was a species there that they didn't want to go to war with, they would basically create a hybrid from themselves with that species secretly, make it look like the one that's there, okay, and then let it perpetuate in until it had taken over from the inside, an infiltration. And then essentially those ones had some special genetic features that the other ones didn't have that the Anunnaki could work with, or their overlords could work with, whatever the races, not just the Anunnaki do this. So essentially they overtake through mind control, through hybridization, genetic mutations of the existing hybrids to make them and the environment what they want. And that includes terraforming, right? Changing the gas content of what's breathed, for instance. They do that too. Changing the amount of sunlight that strikes the planet so it's coincident with what they want. Okay? So we just happen to be the hybrid that they created 200,000 years ago that's just finding this out. But it happens all over the galaxy. It's not just here. You look mortified.
Nah, I'm listening. Well, I watched maybe it's 3 hours you did with Rex Bear, and you kind of did a summary of your book, right? And then what's the title? It's Annunaki of Nibiru, and then you have the
seventh planet, Mercury rising.
Yeah. And so Tellinger's book is, Slave Species of the Gods is the same thing. And it's like, I don't even know how many pages, like 800-900. So it's a huge idea for people to understand. So if we can just accept that idea, and I'll just offer this too, that you're basically electrical engineer, scientist, researcher. How did you find this out? Like, when you find something, you're not just going through the internet and looking at what people are posting, you're finding it. So how do you also trace the Anunnaki back further than Zecharia, Sitchin, and others, right? So how did you go about that?
There's nothing wrong with starting a search online with Google and getting a thread, but depending on the degree of credentials you need and the audience is looking at it will determine how many references you need to go right and get right. That's why I decided to start with the Oxford University, because they were experts in the field at translation, and they were involved with people who had been digitizing the cuneiform tablets for 50 years. And so there was no human in the loop. If you set up the symbol library correctly and you digitize it and let the machine and let the system, automate the conversion, then you can't go, well, there's a translation problem. You either accepted the symbol library that was given or you didn't. And they published that. It's in a hexadecimal Unicode font text that you can download to your computer with all the hexadecimal codes for every cuneiform symbol that's used. And I have it, by the way. So you can go look at a cuneiform tablet today is what I'm telling you. You can take this symbol dictionary and you go, well, this picture matches this one, so it makes that phonic sound. And if we put these together, what sound it is. And this is where you get into the stitching together of phonemes or glyphs, then they mix them, okay? They mix those. Is when you do that, it adds complexity to the language, and it also adds interpretation problems for people that don't see the big picture in context if they don't have enough of the document, you know what I'm saying? So, and this was true with George Smith in 1871. He goes, we'll never have 100% correctness, but is it enough? Do we have enough? He had enough to write the book Chaldean Genesis and basically point out that the entire Bible that we have in our hands that was converted from Hebrew. By the way, the Hebrew priests were the same Jews that were held in Babylon, where they saw these texts. For 1,600 years, they were held in captivity. Do you realize that? From 586 until the Crusades, they were held captive in Babylon under Marduk. So this is where they saw the history of the Enuma Elish and all these kind of documents and decided to write a version of that history for their people in the tribe of Jacob for Israel. That document they wrote wasn't intended for the whole world. It was only for their tribe. And somehow it ended up being the book the whole world calls the Word of God. Isn't that something? Well, if you listen to Mauro Bellino, who's a Vatican translator who I've done interviews with, he verified to me while he was translating the Masorite text for the Vatican when he got fired, okay, after doing 17 books for them. It wasn't a capabilities issue. It was what he stumbled on. He found out that every document that the Hebrews had converted came from the Sumerian text, and they had basically told it their way. And it wasn't the actual accurate way either. Okay? So the Vatican knows this at the very highest levels. The Pope knows this, that everybody who's believing that book is true is falling for a lie.
Wow. So what does that, well, if people are, religious hearing this, what I've been saying, and I hope I'm along the lines, is that like you've got Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and even Yogananda as a modern master. You look at it and some of it for me doesn't resonate. Burning in hell for all of eternity does not resonate, but being loving and kind and, the root of it for me is good. So do you still see Jesus as existing and being a master in that sense and doing those things, and just the book kind of got a little bit distorted? That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Actually, if you really look at the Bible as a war doctrine between bloodlines that are feuding, plus add in all the constellations of the heavens that they use to tell stories so that it wouldn't get perverted over time, right? Because the constellations didn't change, so they could tell these in the allegories that way. Revelations is all done that way. Here's what I think about it, okay? If you go back to the city of Ur in Sumer, the god of the city of Ur was Enlil, Yahweh. We have proof of that. His chief priest was Terah, who was Abram's father. And his half-brother Haran, who lived in that city, created another city up north, which housed a very special temple to the moon god, who was Enlil's son, Nannar. Okay, Nannar Sin was the moon god in Sumer, and he had a very prolific following, both at Haran and the city of Ur. Okay, when Abram left the city of Ur to go to the promised land, and his God was telling him to do this, right? Told him to leave this land and land of your birth and go to where I'm promising this. Well, this was Enlil in the city of Ur asking his general, who he groomed Abram, to go up to Haran. He took a whole caravan, and they were supposed to go into an area that he was now purging because it was occupied by the offspring of his half-brother, Enki. Okay, so I won't go too deep into this. So the land that Abram was being told to go get was occupied by his half-brother's offspring. These are the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, and in particular, the most important one that was on the list. Okay, there were two kids of Enki's that were in that region. And once the casting of the lots happened in Africa in the Atrahasis, Tablet 1, Mesopotamia belonged to Enlil, Yahweh. Marduk went up and stayed in Babylon, okay? And the king of Salem was Melchizedek. That was Thoth, okay? He was in that land when they took over the Temple of Zion. It was actually a mountain fortress under the king of Salem, which is now called Jerusalem, which was Melchizedek. Okay, this same being, Melchizedek, if you read the incarnations of Jesus, I don't even like to use the word Jesus because that was a made-up name. His name they used was Yeshua, but he had other names too, okay? He had other names because he was a multi-incarnate being. And this goes way, way back in time to when this being made a deal with the cycle masters on this planet to be the spiritual teacher in many incarnations, okay, including Buddha, including Melchizedek, including Enoch, and several others, okay? Okay, so he's mankind's teacher, but he shows up in bodies, but he's still the same energy. And one of those names was Ningishita in the Sumerian accounts, and he was the second-born son of Enki. This is where I made the connection to Thoth in Egypt and what happened in the ancient biblical story about Jesus being born in Bethlehem and all of that. Okay, well, here's my take on that. Down in Egypt, Thoth had already made his deal with Poimander in the ancient document, the Divine Vision of Hermes. Okay, Hermes was another name, and Mercury were other names for Ningishita, Thoth, Melchizedek, Buddha, all these names. Okay, and he tells you as much. He's had thousands of incarnations. Well, in this account, he basically committed to not going back and leaving this dimension and staying here and teaching us. So in Atlantis, he left, ends up in Egypt, sets up the mystery schools along the Nile, 12 of them, right? That was Thoth, the same Thoth as Thoth the Atlantean from the Emerald Tablets, okay? He did not change his name. Well, this Thoth was the same one who was in Sumer, who we called Ningishita, okay? And there were some documents to show him actually interacting with the king of Judea, where he's handing him a cup with his symbols on it. And he's the one with the symbol of the caduceus, okay? Just so you can gotta get this being nailed down. He's the one, let's just call him Hermes with the caduceus, okay? That's who everybody knows from the Greek gods. It's him, okay? Supposedly written 35,000 books, including the book of Enoch and all these other ones, okay? And all the alchemy books that are just fantastic. Well, by the way, he was listed in the book of Enoch as teaching the science of antimony to the people. And now that you know that antimony is used, or stibium, it's an earth element, stibium, antimony is mixed with gold when it's smelted to create this white talcum powder, right? So he was teaching this to these people in the book of Enoch, and this is why they were held, they were fallen angels for doing that. Well, no, they weren't. He was teaching them ascension principles of alchemy. So bottom line is, Thoth was bringing higher consciousness to people by contract with Poimander through his mystery schools in Egypt. Enlil up in Mesopotamia, just right up in Levant is his area, did not want that. As a matter of fact, his Roman Empire was occupying that land when the story of Jesus came to fruition, right? The Pharisees were there, their temples, which means the Jewish priests. And then you had the Roman oversight through their governorship, even though they had done this amalgamation of what they considered religion at the time and included the ancient Christian god or the Christian figure of Jesus in that new religion, giving him birth on December 25th. That's ridiculous. This is clearly the sun god ritual of December 21st and the 25th, right? So they amalgamated all this. Well, Thoth, I believe on behalf of his father, he was sent to Egypt to wake up the hairy barbarians on behalf of his father Poseidon from Atlantis in the first place. The next step was to make an incursion into Enlil's territory to wake up the slaves who Enki created that were being used barbaristically under the Babylonian Talmud with Marduk and also with Enlil, who was doing child sacrifice as well. They were both doing it, right? As soon as according to Thoth, as soon as you're doing the rites where the blood and the rituals are performed, dark entities from a lower dimension can be brought in and occupy those bodies, okay? This is the story of Moloch and Bohemian Grove. That's what they're doing. And these are the Dracos, okay? And they like children. They eat them as dinner food, okay? And this is part of the deal that the Dark Brotherhood of the Anunnaki has made together to rule this planet, is with the Dracos. And they get left out of the story a lot, but you're generally not going to see them because they can actually go into a body that's been hybridized, take on that form, and as long as they're getting fed the right hormones from human blood, they can maintain that disguise and stay masked in the body. And this is where the movie They Live comes into play. And that's frightening because, listen, Thoth tells you this from the Emerald Tablets that this is true, that this serpent race was brought into this dimension to seek out all leaders in authority and take over their bodies, and they lose their soul and it saps their life. He says that. I'm not saying that, okay? Well, look around you. Is that not the truth? Is that not what's happening? Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, it's all of that is mind blowing, and I know fragments. Some of it a little bit more than others. Some of it, the names. I'm like, I haven't even heard that. So you're a mind blower. And yeah, I'm working. Like there's something that's being created right now called the International Tribunal for Natural Justice to look at human trafficking and ritual sacrifices.
Are you talking about itccs.org? Because it's out of Canada, and I know the guy who's running that. And he's a great guy.
No, but I should connect with them. This one's by Sasha Stone, the New Earth Project.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's going to be in London. So they're going to do an inquiry on these things. And if you look up on YouTube really easily, you can see so many famous people saying, I made a deal with the devil, even Bob Dylan, all these different things. And you look at the ceremony, and you're like, huh. And if you kind of suspend disbelief for a second and you look into it, you're like, that's some interesting stuff. But where it gets to me, and you can feel free to go deeper into any section, because I know you can, it scares the shit out of me. Yeah, what I mean? When it's like
actually, you know what? We woke up talking about some things this morning relative to the financial system and what's going on and what the plans are. Let me just back up before we do that, because we do want to talk about that real quick, because we're really, really close. Okay, really close to whatever people think the New World Order is and rolling out its plan. Well, the plan is already rolled out. They're just waiting for a couple of little things to do, and as soon as those things happen, it's going to be dastardly. I wish I had some good news, and I'm looking for the benevolent forces to step in, but boy, that window is sure closing. That said, let's see, how do we want to do this? There are some key players among the Anunnaki. Some of them are affiliated with the Cycle Masters, and apparently all the way back to the creator of all. These let's just call that the light team, because everybody likes to differentiate. There's the dark team, the light team, okay? There does appear to be a light team, okay? And we know some of the players that are on that, and I believe Enki is one of those. And he's mentioned in the Alien Roswell interview as being part of what's called the Domain Forces. And I believe this is a galactic coalition or an alliance that truly is connected to the creator of all. They operate on galactic justice that has legs, that is real, not what we've seen in being told this is justice. I love this quote from Ishmael, by the way. This was the gorilla who gained consciousness in the book. I don't know if you've read that book. He's looking around, he's assessing mankind's situation, our cosmogony and our laws, and he goes, well, clearly man doesn't know how to live, because if you did, your laws wouldn't be changing all the time. And you think about that, it's like, well, yeah, there were laws in Atlantis, and contrast, were on pillars of stone out in the public, and they never changed. 2 pillars, that's it. Not thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of laws like we have. So anyway, let's talk about who the devil is. Who is it?
I don't know.
Well, in the Bible, we get shown this red-haired, reptilian-looking, scarly-faced thing with a tail and holding a pitchfork, right? Well, that's our concept of the devil, right? Turns out that Draco don't look too much different than that, but they're not holding Enki's trident pitchfork either. So, in the Bible, Enlil as Yahweh warned the Jews, and I just checked on the New International Version, maybe other versions. He warned them 33 times to stay away from Baal. Don't you go worshiping Baal. Makes me jealous. I even included it on the 10 Commandments, right? Don't have any other gods before me, including Baal. Well, who was Baal? I just told you there were 2 of the Anunnaki remnant family that were the opposing clan that were in that region. Melchizedek was one of them. He got out. He left. I think they left by sailing vessel, like the Phoenicians, right? They were great sailors. But they left after the incursion from Yahweh's army. Okay. So that was the fall. That was the real fall of Jerusalem and that genocide that happened there. The other one that was in Babylon, that was Marduk. Marduk saw himself, whether it was true or not, as being the avenger of his father. He had no business being in Mesopotamia, especially not in Babylon. Hold on a second. that was Enlil's assigned territory. So he was there to confront Enlil from day one. he wanted to be the chief deity. He believed, as the son of Enki, the firstborn son of Enki, he believed he was in line to rule. And the fact is, my genealogy table shows him as the son of Enki and Damkina, his wife. That means he was not in line to rule, because they have to be born of the father and the half sister, and according to Anunnaki law, to be in line to rule. So Thoth and Ninurta, these were the two sons of Enki and Enlil that do seem to have been in line to rule. Ninurta was born of and he was known as Apollo in Greece, so you can get your finger. Apollo Ninurta was born of Enlil and his half sister Ninhartshog. Okay, that's Enki and Enlil's both their half sister. She's Ninmah, also known as Isis. So Ninurta truly was in line to rule from the Enlil clan. Okay, and Enlil's clan, if you go to the Olympian gods during the Greek era, they were the same gods, by the way. They were dominating the entire Council of 12, were almost all of Enlil's kids. It was surprising to me to even see Hermes on the list, because he was, at that point, Hermes was the son of, according to the Greek legend, of Zeus and Maya Majesta, who was one of the females off the island of Atlantis. So he was always playing this genetic avatar who was right in between the Enlilites and Enkyites, it seems to me. And maybe that was done for a reason, because he was the messenger after all, right? Maybe he ran liaison between the two families because he was both. I don't know. But I'm not sure how he got on to that. But I wanted to talk about Marduk. Okay, Marduk was epic. He being in Babylon in 586, like I told you, they were going back and forth fighting with Jerusalem. So Yahweh was fighting Marduk even then. So, and it turned out that Abram was being dispatched up to Haran on behalf of Enlil because of Marduk. So the kings of the east and the west, the wars and the battle in the Bible that were talking about that was because of Marduk. And Sitchin wrote a really great book called Wars of Gods and Men that details some of those battles that took place. And then you can go back to the Bible and see that it matches what happened in these pyramid wars, if you will. And it's quite epic. But guess what? By about 2000 BC, or just a little before that, I think I want to say it was 1680 BC or something like that. It looks like, in my records, 1587 was the last passage of Nibiru. Okay, every 3,600 years. So about 1587 BCE, it looks to me like that's when the passage was. Well, right about that time, we saw a nuke go off, okay, in the Middle East and the Sinai Peninsula, especially because that's where the Anunnaki had a spaceport. So it looks like between the wars between Enlil and Marduk fighting over the control of the Bond Heaven-Earth facility, which was in the Sinai, Marduk won. And here's how it happened. Apparently the nuke went off, blew up the facility. The dangerous radioactive wind that drifted up the Tigris and Euphrates area killed everything, poisoned everything. Reminds me of the Gulf War, where they used depleted uranium rounds all over with tanks and sabot rounds in that country. Do you realize that it's not farmable? 80% of that country is polluted with radiation from those rounds. That's a really interesting way to get rid of your depleted uranium, right? Go put it in a weapon and shoot it over on somebody else's territory and leave it there. All right, don't let me get too far off of that. Anyway, that they nuked Sipar, and the destruction was so bad, they all left the region. All the Anunnaki left the region. It wasn't inhabitable. Well, apparently, according to their records, that nuclear wind just missed Babylon because of how it was blowing, and Marduk was saved. And they had a meeting and said, well, the odds are that maybe by the divine hand of the creator of all, that Marduk's still standing, so he must be the one that's supposed to be there. This was circa 2000 BCE, and he took over the Lord of the Earth command on the Anunnaki Council, and had the 50 names of Marduk read every spring in Babylon, as well as the Enuma Elish, where he had changed it to make him the planet Nibiru. He changed the name Nibiru to Marduk. Did you know that? This is in their cosmogony account of how our galaxy came into, or at least our solar system came to be. is in the Enuma Elish. That's their discussion of that. Well, Marduk was very much a part of that. Okay, so Marduk apparently died in 484 BCE and was entombed in Babylon, according to the records. But what they failed to tell you was these guys, they trade bodies like they're used cars. You know, I drive this one for 3 years and then I'm going to get me a new Mercedes. Well, he did that too, and he did the dying, rising God ritual in 3 days, just like they all did. Okay, it's just a ritual they do. But the idea of taking their energy and walking into another body for a six-dimensional being who's playing with avatar hosts on this planet, not a problem. Okay, so he never went away. Even though in 330 BCE, when Alexander the Great went to Babylon to take the hand of Marduk, by the way, I watched the movie Alexander. It's inaccurate. At the temple in Egypt where he went, it was the temple of Amun-Ra, not Amun-Zeus. Okay, I am so tired of people in Hollywood rewriting history to venerate Zeus. Zeus can go kiss my ass. I'm so tired of Thor and Zeus and the savior of humanity. It's all a lie. Zeus is and Yahweh is one of the greatest terrorists on this planet. Ask Morabellino. He even had a T-shirt made about Yahweh being the greatest terrorist on the planet. Killed more people and more genocide than anyone else. Okay, that's the truth. So I don't venerate him at all. Any of them for that matter. So Marduk never went away. He was the god that Alexander wanted to take the hand of when he entered. He was apparently not there at the time. That's when Alexander died in Babylon. Remember, of fever or whatever he died of? Well, he went there for that reason, because he believed he was the son of Marduk. And he was told that by his parents in Macedonia, that he wasn't his father's son. He was a special one. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. But it's very possible, because at Pergamum is where Zeus had his temple in Greece, and Marduk was always just somewhere around, ready to go to war with Enlil. I'm surprised Enlil even got allowed to stay on the planet if Marduk took over. So that was 2000 BCE. Then, not sure what happened about the time the zodiac changed over to the age of Pisces with our current age. I really thought that Enlil was in charge, because it has his sign of his eagle and all this stuff all over the world, and he's running the New World Order. He's the god of America, and he was the god of America as of 1895, when the York Rite was infiltrated by the Christian god, who's the Roman god, who was Enlil. Okay. But that apparently has changed. And I think this came with Zionism. Okay, and here, follow me on this. In Babylon, Marduk was the chief deity. The Jews are held captive there for 1,600 years. They walk away with a Babylonian Talmud and then create a Jewish Talmud based on what they've been exposed to for a long time under Marduk. Okay, a long time, where he's been asking for their firstborn kids and blah, 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 and promising them the world, and he'll teach them the Babylonian money magic, but they've got to follow the Quran or the Talmud, and they've got to follow the principles of Zion. Well, this came later, but this is all derived from the Talmud, and these teachings are based on this wisdom from Marduk. Okay, they didn't take over the monetary system for the entire world without Marduk's help. Okay, and so Marduk is the god of the Zionist. Okay, even though Enlil was the god of the ancient Israelites, those ancient Israelites that had there was only like 1% of them had any blood that even belonged in that area. We're talking about Khazar Jews who landed via Russia back into Israel, and they're running the show, and they're running America too. Okay, look up the Zionists of America if you don't believe me. While Steve Bannon's over there, kissing their butt, and same with Trump. Why are they kissing a foreign agency's butt? Okay, these dual citizens that are running our government, marrying into their families, and establishing the Federal Reserve that's basically a debt enslaving every single one of us. Why are they going along with this? Because they own them. That's why. And it's been that way for a long time. So now the "In God We Trust" that you see on the dollar bill is not Enlil anymore. It's Marduk. And how you know this is go into any 501c3 church where they have a congregation and they pray. What do they say at the end of it? Amen. Right? They're giving venerance to Amun-Ra himself, Marduk. Okay? And that's by design. Listen, the Jewish principles of Zion have infiltrated every church in America. They own the government. They own the three-letter agencies. They own the banks. They own the military-industrial complex. They own every bean and bullet company that serves the military. And I guarantee you, they own every word that comes out of a preacher's mouth, because they're under contract, essentially, via Rome to the Jews, okay, the two main churches that run the world, the Mother Church and the Father Church, the Vatican and the synagogue. And that's the truth. And guess what? Marduk synagogue is at the top. Did you know that?
Man, I only knew a fraction of any of this, man. Oh my God.
The problem is Marduk is so brilliant compared to humans. He's probably got 23 to 50 plans for every single move with alternative plans. And the doctors who released a memo about the Illuminati back in 1969, I put this on my Facebook page. By then, when they were briefed on what's coming, which was really horrible to them, they knew at that point there wasn't a thing they could do about it, not one thing. And guess what? We're now this close to the final piece being put into place so that everybody either serves the beast or dies. And you know what that is, don't you? The beast is Marduk, by the way, and his number is 666. And I've done shows on this on my site, okay? And the Rothschild red star that was turned blue for the Israeli flag is Marduk's star, and there's 6 sides on it, 6 angles, and 6 points, okay? And the 6 points have a very significant meaning to the Anunnaki. They numbered the planets from the outside in. And so the 6th planet is Mars. And who went to Mars when the Great Flood came in the records? It was Marduk. And Nanar went to the moon. That's why he ended up with the moon god symbol. Okay? But Marduk did. And Marduk is back. He's head of the New World Order. He just built a fabulous new city off of petrodollar money, off the Khazar steppes in Kazakhstan, where the Babylonian Talmud was used on the Khazars, right? To convert them all when they were approached by the Rusis in about 770 or so CE. Okay, so at that point, go look at the city Astana in Kazakhstan. Brand new, first capital city built in the 21st century. It's got Marduk symbols all over it. And you ask yourself, how did they spend billions of dollars and build this out in the middle of nowhere, and for what purpose? Well, it's a New World Order city, and Marduk's about to roll it out. The reason you didn't know about it, because it wasn't time, but now it's out in the open. And they are rolling it out, buddy. And I'm telling you, that one last piece that was missing that you didn't quite come up with, that's going to cause us all to go into a panic when they say this. And it's supposed to happen on a Friday, government shutdown, and Monday they're going to announce it.
Announce what?
Well, it's kind of coincident with the collapse of the US dollar, which is way overdue, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
About the time the petrodollar started getting replaced by the yuan and the Russian ruble and any other currency that they wanted to trade through the BRICS nations with Saudi Arabia, who's going along, the petrodollar's done. So it's just a matter of time, and they know that. Well, what are they going to do? Well, imagine they came out and said, well, we got a new one world currency. And guess what? We're going to introduce it now on Monday. It's Monday. All the cash you have in the bank, all the cash you have in your possession, it's all worthless. It's not being accepted anymore. And here's what we're going to do for you. If you go along and support this new currency, all you businesses out there that, transact and have to decide whether you take this currency or not, if all you do this, guess what? We're going to wipe away all your debt. All of it. House free and clear, car free and clear, all of it. It's all yours. Now, how many people are going to say no to that? Nobody is. And if you do say no to that and you look like you're going to be impeding them getting out of debt, they would off you in a minute. So if you're a dissident, they're going to turn them against you and off you if you don't go along with this. So It's only going to take somebody going, well, the new currency is a digital currency and we're going to call it this. And if you do anything else other than that, then you're in this line and you're a dissident, and eventually we'll give you one chance to come back in. Otherwise, you're going to FEMA camp. You're done. We have a humane way to get rid of you. As a matter of fact, they were talking about that in 1969. That's no joke. That's what they had planned. They will start separating the population. And those who go along with the New World Order and have no problems with it, happy face, I'm going to be a good slave. You'll go along for a while, and whatever happens, happens. According to Enki, you will be enslaved for the next galactic cycle. That's 26,900 or 25,920 years until you get another shot at your avatar ascending out of this terrible system that we're in. So what he's telling you is if you go along, you're done. You've just signed up for slavery as multiple avatars for another 26,000 years. Boy, this is tough times we're living in to make some choices, huh? Shit.
What do I do with myself, man? This is terrible news, bro. So, what do you have any? What do we do to miss? Can we dodge that? Like what?
How do you? Well, listen. Yeah. What can humans do? They can try to barter with each other, right? Like we did in the past. But look, that's a very limited way to get by. I have some conch shells for your sunglasses or whatever. It can be done. I think it'll create a huge black market. But listen, they have eyes and ears everywhere. The Anunnaki are so sophisticated, they can read your brain waves from a satellite. There ain't no private thought you've ever had, ever. Think about that. Every thought you generate's an electromagnetic signal that they can detect. You're a telemetry meat modem, and you always have been. That's the truth. So the idea that you're being snooped on like Snowden told you, yeah, that's terrible. But guess what? You've always been snooped on. If you were worth looking at. And I think our three-letter agencies are just now catching up to understand the technology that they had to snoop in the electromagnetic spectrum. And now it's gotten a little bit worse in that not only are they just using it for sensing, but they could also use it to transmit and do things to your brain, anything they wanted to. They could fry your brain. They can cause major harm to your brain through the ELF. They could scramble your brain. There's a lot of things they could do, okay? And so we're right on the edge of the old powers that are trying to hold this world hostage, and we call those the Dark Brothers. This New World Order, it's not new, it's old, okay? The idea of somebody controlling everything and everybody else being slaves, hey, that's what we've seen all through history, or at least transitioning, trying to expand your empire so you could be that one, right? That's old. That's the old world system. But if this happens, they don't need 7 billion of us. And this is where the Georgia Guidestones come in. That is the New World Order mandate of their commandments, what they want. They want no more than 500 million of us on this planet. That's the truth. So, as part of separating dissidents, maybe that's going to happen. And the other terrible part that I want to bring up for people that are following the Bible and going, oh, well, God must be telling us the truth because these prophecies are happening. Look at them one after the other in the headlines. Let me tell you, if you've got the kind of money like the Rothschilds have, do you realize he has $500 trillion himself in 144 countries with banks in every one of them? $500 trillion himself. What kind of psyops could you run with that money? How many armies could you set up opposing each other while you take over countries and steal resources? Listen, with that kind of money, you can play God and you can make prophecies come true. I can make Isaiah come true, and Damascus will be a ruinous heap. Damn it, it's not there yet, but I'm getting there. It's almost there. See what I'm saying? The Zionists have done more to make Bible prophecy come true, which is really Enlil's war plan, than Enlil's original Jews did. I mean, they would go into civilized other countries and they would integrate. The Zion Jews don't. They view everyone as goyim, and they have a plan to take over the world, and all of us serve them while they get all the money based on Marduk's teachings and Babylonian money magic. It's right in the Talmud and the principles of Zion. So people don't know that. Or going along, getting along, well, you're a good Shev Goy. That's what they call you, right? But they all collude together. If you're not one of them, you are an insect. That's right.
All right. So I'm just imagining somebody running on a treadmill listening to this podcast. Just even me, like if I were listening to this, like going to the gym, like, Gerald, man, like, come on, I'm gonna have nightmares. I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. So is there okay, what about what about, and you might destroy this, so I don't want to ask this question.
No, I promise I won't.
I was like, oh God, because the other flip side, and when I try to go, when I read, I don't know, Life Masters of the Far East, I go into meditation,
Love that
altered
series.
states.
Love that.
Yeah, from Jay Campbell, right? Friggin', well, he recommended it to me. It's fantastic. And so, I look at these states and like ascending my consciousness, and there's a big part of people saying we're going through the ascension, and I know there's a lot of messery with that, but also there is an expansion of consciousness with the ability to, the internet, to just share information instantly, new technologies which you're into. So do you see it
for all you out there? I'll tell you what Matt's doing. He's looking for a happy ending. Okay.
Let's do it. At least one that's ending. At least
there is a happy ending.
God, 26,000 years. Can I avoid that? That's what I'm asking. Can I miss it?
Actually, I'm going to give you some really kind of esoteric, and this needs a lot more time. It needs a whole other show. Okay. What is the good news?
Yeah.
Number one, against his brother's will, Enki put a genetic seed in us whose source comes from the creator of all. Okay. It's not considered an artificial viral replicating intelligence like the soulless beings and the grays and some of them that are just an intelligence that just look to replicate themselves. They have no connection back to or any concern about a bigger picture in the creator of all. Okay. We didn't come from that. We came from a seed with a soul that goes right back to the source of it all, which is the creator of all, which is light. Okay. So this unmanifested energy, which is the infinite intelligence, the source, whatever Thoth calls it lots of different names in his emerald tablets. Let's just call it the creator of all. That's a good one. We are from that, and he has given us in his writings what constructs were given to us so that we find our way back to that, even though we're enslaved. Okay, so the Egyptians had a concept of two energies, a ba and a ka. The ka is the energy you're born into of illusion, where you live a material reality and you don't even know that you're a spiritual being, right? You never even care about that. Okay? Hey, I got a season pass a football game and got my six pack. It's all good, right? Like that. Whereas the truth is, in Atlantis, the beings that Enki was managing there under that civilization, and this is why Solon wanted to know about this, they were living what he called the goal, which was self-actualization and getting as close back to the source as they could based on where they were in this dimension. You can only go so far in this dimension. Let's talk about that. In this dimension, we're ruled by cycle masters, and apparently there are 7 of them. Even though there's a total of 9 in the whole regimen, we are assigned 7 of them. And these are called out in Emerald Tablet 6 of the false writings. Okay, they each assigned to a different chakra. So the 7 cycle masters match exactly to your chakras. And they are given the functions of controlling those levels of quantized consciousness in humans on the 7th planet. 7 chakras, 7th planet. You're starting to see the pattern here. Okay. And so as you progress, you will realize that energy that you're pursuing in this self-actualization and overcoming the illusion, when you do that, you're approaching the energy that he calls the ba. The ba energy is your infinite sun soul energy that allows you to realize this is just a game. I'm just an avatar. I'm here having a transient experience and a meat host. That's not important. I'm absolutely not afraid of dying, because I'll trade that meat house out for another one. I wonder if I have another mission. Otherwise, I'm going to hang out in my celestial hammock until I'm needed again, right? Or I'm going to be reading some more esoteric stuff I didn't have time to when I was down there on the prison planet. See what I'm saying? When you reach that level, according to Thoth and the creator of all, you're no longer playing the game, the matrix game. You're a servant of reality, and your life changes and your mission changes, and you're only a servant of light. And listen, that doesn't mean you're out to wake everyone up and change everything. You finding light in and of yourself through the masters of the Far East, through yoga, through Zen meditation, whatever it is, when you find the self and the not self are distinguished, and you focus on the not self, which is your template energy, your ba energy from the creator of all. When you find that, you're done. Your ascension's over. The rest of the time you're here is just to serve the reality that was given to you in these writings, which is light. And you don't know what light's going to have you do. It's unmanifested, right? When it hits you and decides what it wants you to do, it'll let you know then. Until then, just be happy with the now and be the best you can be as an example to yourself. I mean, you're seeking your own boundaries of your performance envelope, right? Keep doing that, but also include the energetic level and find out what you can do about that. So you've talked about that. Well, from the outside, if we're distinguishing loci of control, you've got the inside, which you think you're in control of, and the outside. By the way, there's no inside and outside, okay? That's just a dualistic way of thinking. We know that as the sun, or as our solar system migrates to the galactic center, almost sinusoidally, like a wave, that when it gets close to the center, it receives all the energy that's being pulled in that nebulous shape back to the galactic center. I mean, it's in a spiral nebula, like a pancake, right? Well, if they're in the center of the pancake, you're going to have more energy than you do outside of that, just by the nature of gravity and what it does to this material form. Okay? And we don't really know what gravity is. That's a whole other show. Actually, I've got that down to do as a premium content show for my channel. So when our solar system goes through there, it's a burning rock, okay? And it's going to go through gas and dust and crap. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You pour gas and dust on a burning rock, it's going to get hotter, right? So in terms of solar system physics, without being too simplistic, if that happens and our sun changes quanta, which means energy levels, just like you can pump energy into a system and its valence shells get all stirred up and then they go out to the next valence shell, right? The spherical boundary that's not contiguous but discrete, quantized. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And you can go to your periodic table of elements and see what those are for every one. They're listed on there, what the valence shells are. Okay? Well, if you do this to the sun and it goes to another quantized state, guess what? It's going to give off something. It's going to give off a new energy. And it's going to happen every time it goes through there until the life of this star goes supernova and explodes. Or it dies and implodes on itself and it becomes a dark star or a brown dwarf or a red dwarf, like that. So our life is very much like the life of a planet. In the sense that every 26,000 years or so, about the time when the sun is rising in where Pisces goes into Aquarius, you can see where that happens. That's where we line up with the Mayan prediction of the dark rift, which is the galactic center. Well, when that happens, our solar system is going to get hit with energy, and there's going to be massive environmental changes, which we're kind of seeing right now. And one of those I predicted in my analysis of the Enuma Elish was that's probably the place, if I had to guess, where Nibiru got stripped from its solar system and somehow got trapped into our solar system, because they called it an intruder planet for that reason. Okay, so I think about the time we go through the galactic center, my prediction was that's probably the point where we ended up with this 12th planet in our solar system. Okay, well, if that's the case, we're entering that stage right now. We're entering the age of Aquarius. We're going into the galactic center right now. So the energy is going to be increasing. And according to Timothy Leary, we have latent DNA circuits that he discovered, 8 of them in our system. And I won't go over all of them. I put them in my 7-Planet Mercury Rising book. The 8th one is triggered energetically. Ta-da! Imagine that. So if you're alive, this is my supposition, when you go through the galactic center and the energy just reaches the right threshold for your human energy body, what do you think is going to happen, Matt?
Ideally expand in some way.
Well, think about
energy
your shock.
Body.
Think about a rising tide lifts all boats. Okay, does that analogy make sense?
Yeah.
When this energy increases, it's going to affect everybody's energy body, for good or ill. It's going to depend on where you are in this process to determine what you do. Now, if you're not processing that and you're stuck in your red chakra, you're going to act out red chakra stuff bad. You're going to act out the consciousness of where you are when that comes. And hopefully you can ride that wave like a snowboarder or a surfer and catch that energy at the crest and go right to the peak of it and get the highest place you want to be, because that's what you want, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you're doing that. You're doing that. So the idea of ascension is not escape. It's transformation. And listen, I don't know if it means that new quantized state of the sun immediately changes all life forms, because it does. The light from the sun regulates all life forms. Well, if it changes, all life forms are going to change. What does that mean? Does that mean this avatar no longer has to have meat, but it can just be light? It seems to be that is where we're going, because Thoth tells us we're in the process of becoming light. And I think that makes sense to me, just looking physically at what's happening in our galaxy relative to these spiral arms. We live on the Orion arm of our galaxy, galactic, and we're about 2/3 of the way out on it, right? Not all the way. No, we're not that close to the center. So we're taking a spinning ride on a heliacal moving sun while we're spinning around with it. So it's all moving. There's nothing stationary at all. So change comes with cyclic wobbles in our galactic center, whether it's a black hole, whatever you want to call it. Our whole galaxy has a wobble that causes everything it's dragging along with it to wobble. So this seems to be where the little sinusoidal wobble comes that creates what we call the Kali Yuga cycle, or our great year. There's a Satya Yuga, Kali Yuga. These are the Hindu names for these long wobble cycles that are assigned to who? The cycle masters. That's what they manage. They manage consciousness as a function of these large epics that are essentially caused by wobbles. Isn't that crazy? So yeah. Untanas, Quertas, Chietals, Sembetal, Goiana, and Ardal, these ones out of Emerald Tablet 6, they are the ones that Enki looks up to and the ones that Thoth looks up to and have alliances with, because they're the ones that set the consciousness on this dimension for all of us. Because there are conscious goals for each dimension, right? You're supposed to get from here to here. You're supposed to wake up from a barbarian to become light in this one, right? That was Thoth's mission. That's how he talked about the land of Chem. He was raising them to the light.
Okay, that makes me feel better. But let me just throw this back at you to see where I have distortion and how you feel about it. So I've heard, about the veil, and in the Bible talk about separating the harvest, right? Harvest. The way that I'm hearing this and the way that I've kind of thought about it myself was like, okay, ascension time, and saying like, this is a critical point in history, all that kind of stuff. I've been hearing that for a long time, and it resonates with me. And so the idea I feel like you might be presenting would be, let's say the sun activates, our DNA activates, and almost like a psychedelic experience or an ayahuasca, it's all a reflection of your consciousness, your choice, your intentions, and who you are. So you take a whole bunch of acid and all this nightmare stuff happens and you can't handle it. That's like your consciousness being able to handle it in some sort of manner. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have the ability, when this high energy state comes from a reflection of your work and your choices on this planet, to kind of basically, ride that wave, to go and direct and have like an ability, have a little bit of self-mastery or awareness or consciousness to steer towards what feels good, what feels right, what like aligned to you in whatever coherent state. And if you're kind of stuck at this lower level, like root chakra, fear, anger, competition, all these things, you will then have the possibility of being stuck in this, because this is your time to get out of it. And then this would be the result of that. So it's almost, because I've heard like the worlds are fractaling even, and you're going to have one reality where it makes more sense, kind of new earthy and just at least cooperation. People are being cool. Maybe the idea of Atlantis having the rules on like these epic things that are basically, don't go shoot somebody in the face and rob all their stuff. Like, yeah, everybody's cool with that. We can agree. We're cool. Let's go play some tennis and snowboard or something. And if you don't make that choice, then the possibility of riding out that flip side, the dark side of just basically running another cycle of enslavement. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of?
Well, you hit on something really profound, and I discovered this kind of early on, is we don't believe that what we think creates our own reality. We don't believe that, really, do we? Some people say it and they're like, oh yeah, there's those people that the positive thinkers, and they think all that, but the reality is we do create our own reality. And in Drunvalo Melchizedek's book, Flower of Life, he talks about what happens right at the point where this energetic threshold for humanity is met, that what I would like to say triggers your 8th latent DNA circuit that was put in there by Enki, by the way. He designed you to experience this. And that circuit rewrites all your other circuits. It's like doing 20 years of yoga. Your pineal gland comes on, you start buzzing, and you're experiencing the full life that usually only a few people do in this life. Okay. And the people that wake up to experiencing a pain-free body, energetic feelings that are coincident with the creator of all, and they see the manifestation of their thoughts to actions. They know it may not happen immediately unless they learn how to learn. Okay, like the masters of the Far East could do. They could create their own meals for themselves just through their thought. Well, this goes very deep into talking about what capabilities do we have as co-creators with the creator of all. What are our capabilities? What can we create, right? You know, we can do these tasks, but do we have the power of what they described in the Masters of the Far East, like a quantum encryption encoding in our system that can take light, stitch it together with fundamental elements from the periodic table and create whatever we want? Because that's how the material in our simulator is made that we see, and we call it real. It's made out of basic elements and light stitched together in various bonds through frequency vibrations, right? Like cymatics in a way. So, and we are too, by the way. So our frequency is just a little different than theirs. But so from that standpoint, if this external cycle of a great year, they call it a great year for a reason. I think it's because if you were alive at that time and you were exposed to this energetic change, you got to go to the higher dimensional state that you were intended to all along. And I think everybody ends up going there eventually as part of the simulator, especially if they choose that. Okay, so what Drumvallo says when we get close to that event is be careful what you're thinking. Because whatever you think right when that occurs, you're going to manifest it. He's like, okay, if you're thinking somebody's prowling around outside your house with a gun, they want to rob you, guess what? That's what's going to show up in your reality. So it's like a holodeck. You're creating it all, okay? And it happens very quickly once you get into another dimensional state where we don't have the restrictions on material form like we do here. Even though it happens, it just happens slower, right? Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yeah, and I wanted to keep going, but I thought it's so interesting. I've had that direct experience, at Burning Man. It's a higher, I think, I did a paper on it. Basically, the long story short is my theory is that everybody more or less is in their hearts because it's a gifting economy. So the vibration of our hearts is, thousands of times stronger than our minds. So we're in a coherent field. And people have spontaneous healings, law of attraction, they call it playa magic, right? You think something, you need scissors and somebody's coming down in a tutu with these comic sized scissors. They work. It's not exactly how you imagine, but they come. Right. And a lot of the work that I'll do, I'll hear people like, oh man, I've had such a terrible time at Burning Man. I didn't think it was going to be like this. And I get to talk to them. And they're thinking the thing, like one of the girls that I was speaking with, she's like, I thought like the guys here were going to be cool, but they keep catcalling me and being inappropriate. And I was like, well, does this happen in your regular life? She's like, yeah, it does. And I was like, well, you're probably putting it out there because you get that mirror much faster. And so I've heard this, that, my good friend Jason Stiles told me, he's just like, the way that I think about it is that my thoughts are public domain, that everybody can, like when I'm talking to you, they can know what I'm thinking. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And Dan Winter, who I'm sure you're aware of, talks about having thoughts as a shareable wave, having shareable thoughts that will be harmonious for all of life. And that's the
thing is all thoughts are shared. You can't not share them. Okay. The question is whether other people consciously know they're receiving them. Okay. So, and when you start dealing with the Merkaba field and things like that, and expanding your own energy field, you start to realize this is real. And you walk through the grocery store, you can feel things from other people at a distance that you don't want to feel and you don't want to know about. Things like that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Anyway, so let's go back to the idea of a happy ending here. And that the first happy thing to find out is that we were genetically designed and connected so that our pathways do lead back to the original source of the creator of all. And that we are eternal energy forms, and this is only a stop along our way. That ought to remove the sting and fear of death for people if they really could grasp that and get that. Okay? Because The fear of death is due to ignorance, and it's been used against people. The religious community has used it ad infinitum. Listen, how many religious institutions have been selling salvation, and you do this and you do that, you go through these people and we'll give it to you. You can't buy your salvation. You got to earn it. You got to earn it. It's inside, like Jesus or Yeshua or Melchizedek or Buddha, what they told you, where light meets this in your energy ganglions of your nerve complex that connects to your brain. Okay, with all your glands that go with each of those chakras. Okay, there's an endocrine system that's triggered by energetically that coincides with your energy body. That includes the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thymus, and several others. Okay, they're all coincident with these energy centers for a reason. They have their function that works when you're in your Ka energy, right? But then they have their function that works when your Ba energy is activated. And that's real life. That's the one where Noah was accused of having found life, right? The son of Enki, Atrahasis, Zeusudra. He found life. Well, it's because of this. The life that they're talking about is the eternal energy that animates us all. Okay, but if you give that up to go along with the money magic system from Marduk, his father Enki told us in an anonymous message, "You will be recycled." That's how sternly he feels about it because of what his son has done, which basically is lie to the whole world and position himself to become the new world order leader after the whole field is cleared, with either Nibiru destroying it, where you don't tell everybody, or you cause a nuclear war or a pandemic, or let Fukushima keep radiating till all the algae's gone. We won't have any oxygen anyway. There are so many ways to exterminate the occupants of this planet, and they could use any one of them. So I feel like we're being held hostage a little bit right at the ascension window. Okay, that's where it's going to get the most intense, where like some of these might get away, right? We don't want them to get away. Let's get rid of them first, right? These are the dissidents, and we're very close to that window. So it's almost like it's a good time to keep doing your mission, but not draw too much attention to yourself, and go ahead and be a light for the world. They're watching, and go through this process without fear, right? Right in the lion's den, right up to the last minute. No, I'm not using your money. Do what you will. I know where I'm going. And I can't be manipulated in any way, shape, or form because of that. And I hope that becomes the truth for everyone else, because the idea that we can change this reality on this prison planet, the reality is it was designed as a prison planet for incarnating souls. It serves its function, and you wouldn't have woken up had you not been through the prison system, would you? Well, maybe you would, but you wouldn't appreciate it if you had to be attached to a planet that had people or avatars living in a material form that are going through the same thing that you're going through. And we're all going through the same thing. It's an evolution of consciousness back to the source of it all, which is the creator of all. That's where we're all going, and we're all in different stages, even on different planets and galaxies. We're all doing that. I don't care if you're a Draco, a Gray. Well, I will have to say though, if you're an artificial replicating viral intelligence and you're just a clone without any connection to the creator of all, and you think creating like that is okay, then I don't see that. I think that needs to be stopped, because you're falsely creating in the hologram that the creator of all created with something that doesn't follow the rules of the creator of all. And you know, that's not going to be allowed forever. Imagine if you were the creator of all and you had a timeline that you could just, well, that's an interesting experiment you've done down there. I didn't authorize it, so I'm just going to put you on an infinite loop on that timeline. You don't go on the main timeline, and it'll be fun to watch and see how this turns out. We'll record it for the other posterity sakes of the other civilizations that think they want to pull this. Whatever, right? And I think that is what's going on with the Earth. This has truly become one of those places where it's a prison planet. Artificial viral replicating intelligence has landed here. It's infiltrating all the governments. It's running it like a like a prison system. And I think the only people that escape from this are the ones who activate their body energy that was given to them. And it's not going to be pretty. None of us get out of this alive in this body. Okay. But don't be afraid. Your essence is immortal and it's light. And it can take on another body if it wants to. And by the way, this is where I wanted to close this with. For anybody who's ever had an out-of-body experience, they know exactly what I'm saying because they've lived this, they've experienced it. They know their intellect and their core essence of their energy, call it your body, whatever it is, your soul. It exists outside of the meat host, and it's eternal. It's immortal. It's multidimensional, right? That's the truth. And millions of people know that, but they don't regularly talk about it because they don't want to be considered a wacko, you know? But that's the truth. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say for today. I think we'll save some of this other more advanced stuff like learning and some other crazy stuff that you want to know about from the Masters of the Far East. We could do another show about some other time. But
oh yeah, I would love that. What the heck is learning? Is that when you're...
Well, this comes from a space called light encoding the reality matrix. Remember I told you how does light mix how does it mix with the periodic table and create stibium? How does it create sulfur? How does it create mercury? See what I'm saying? So we think of these as real substances, but they're not really real. They're just they're just functionally real to us in the simulator that are created for the hologram. Nothing is real but energy. All material transitions to its energetic state eventually, and then maybe back, but maybe not, right?
Holy crap, man. Well, dude, this was a privilege, and I'm so glad to have you on here. I know when I'd reached out, we had like a couple private conversations just because I was so fascinated by your work and everything that you're doing. So I was so privileged to be just listening to you and go through that. So I just want to thank you. Before I let you go, I'll just give you two things. One, make sure people, I know you're doing a crowdfunding and you're setting up your YouTube stuff is, if you want to learn more about this stuff, that's why I didn't get you to dive deep, because you have stuff everywhere that goes deep on everything that you just said, and you go in depth so people can check that out. So where can they see more? Check out the crowdfunding stuff you got going on.
The best place to go is to my website, geraldclark77.com. And from there, I have links to my Facebook. I have a pretty good YouTube presence. Just look up Gerald Clark. I've got a couple of channels out there. I don't really do much with Twitter or Instagram or all these other ones. It's hard enough to get me to do anything social anyway. So I'm lucky to do that much. But I do have some premier content that I'm setting up, and I'm doing a lot of work with that and still sharing with the YouTube community. But I'm putting some of my best of my best on my premier content. I'm going to do that from now on. So I am working on a crowdfunding campaign, like you mentioned. It's kind of switching right now from funding getting the tools so we can play with making a movie to a marketing phase right now, where there's I guess you'd say a marketing kit that's being developed with all the things that somebody who wants to evaluate this opportunity would have in it, like I don't know, like screenplays and things like that, So I've made it digital. I've animated quite a bit of it. I've got some sample videos and some clips to bring that concept to life. So I just released that. Actually, I'm publishing it right now as we speak. It went through its first iteration and publishing yesterday online. So once that's done, we're hoping to get this Annunaki story told as a movie. It was supposed to be 3 parts. And this is just the first part, where it goes from their prehistory on Nibiru about 450,000 years ago up to the birth of the first chimera, which is where we came into the story. So in the Garden of Eden, okay. So that's where that story is. I think it's a story that needs to be told, and yes, it's told entertaining as an allegory with the names changed to protect the innocent and to keep it so it doesn't get squashed. But it does chronologically tell the right story with the right characters and the right places. So I'd like to see that story told. It's worth being told. And I think a movie, it would be a good way to expose a lot of people to it. If it doesn't make it to that, it's going to be available in a screenplay and with whatever conceptual work I'm able to put toward it. And you can kind of see I'll point over here, you can see the movie posters on the back wall here that I had made for it. title, but it's Odyssey Key. Do you see that?
Yeah. You've posted some pretty cool animations. I remember the one time talking to you, you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to learn how to animate stuff. And then gradually you just learned how, just because why not?
Gradually. that was brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that these programs have gotten so memory intensive, polygon crunching intensive, that for you to render something that looks real time, it takes a monster machine to do that well. I'm serious. Like you won't get one off the shelf that can handle this. So you're talking a very specialized video card and things like that, and loss of memory, and then there's all the time to just try to figure out, how do I make this stupid avatar or try to talk and move and be realistic, I kind of did it for two reasons. One, because as an engineer, seemed attracted to 3D modeling. I don't know why. Simulating modeling. And also, I figured there's a way I could do some concept work and see if I could get enough interest in getting the story to the next level. Because truly, to make a trailer that's 3-4 minutes long, like the big houses do, you're talking righteous bucks there, buddy. Probably $100,000, if not more. And a lot of times they're taking stuff from the movie. These are key scenes from the movie, so the movie has to be pretty implemented to have the scene sets and all that action captured.
Yep.
So it's kind of a deep dive to produce a trailer. But,
well, from even what you discussed today, like you take a portion of that and turn it into a movie, it would just be the most. It's like the Matrix on steroids mixed with Star Wars. You can have like 7 installments, 20 installments.
Yeah, imagine, not only just ancient astronaut story, but they're talking about advanced stuff like creating avatars, moving the energy in and out of an avatar, establishing latent circuits so that they can wake up, and all the shenanigans that go back and forth and ultimately it was a battle over consciousness. One of them, slavery and consciousness don't go together well, right? Because if you've got a reflective consciousness, you go, hey, what are these shackles on my hand there? I'm digging. What's going on? So with a reflective consciousness, it's antithetical to slavery. And so this has always been the battleground, even in the stories where, in the story of Adam and Eve, where she chooses to take something that represents the tree of knowledge. Well, why would knowledge be a bad thing, right? Well, that's why, is because, the slave master wanted the slaves to be the slaves, had no interest in them being on the council and being peers. Okay. So that hasn't really changed from the species. You can call it racism if you want, but it's a reality. If you're a subset of this species and they're more advanced than you are, listen, slavery happens naturally in those circumstances. So it's more of an idea of how do you fit in when advanced meets not advanced. Is there a subjugation willingly or unwillingly? And if it's willing, this is where people are going to monasteries and trying to learn what the masters know, right? That's willingly. Unwillingly is they end up as the fodder in the resource gathering galactic colonization plans of this ancient race, or whoever it is. Okay, it's more than just one. According to the Soviet documents, we've had 70 to 80 races that have visited this planet, according to the KGB documents.
Snap.
Yeah. So anyway, we should close this out.
Wait, before I want to ask you one more question before we go, because you can elaborate or keep it short, up to you. So if we're in this and all this is happening and all this stuff, well, the one thing I wanted to draw was just now I'm going down a rabbit hole of the consciousness of like your thoughts. You create your reality. So sometimes people can get lost in a rabbit hole, and it might not be, then you're kind of like dark and scared of stuff, and then it's hard to have thoughts where you feel safe and secure and stuff like that. Right. So I just wanted to bring that up, and maybe you could touch on it. But the question I wanted to ask was,
well, let me do it for you. Forget.
Okay.
Emerald Tablet 6 describes a process where you can talk to the cycle masters yourself. And in that process, they guarantee you they will block the Dark Brothers, meaning Marduk and the Draco and the ones that can walk into your body. They will block them from your path. It says it right in, and you can do it for other people too. Everybody ought to do that and see what happens. Really.
Awesome.
There isn't any higher source other than the creator of all, and these cycle masters are their liaisons. And if he's given you a process to approach them and ask for them not to intercede anymore in your light path, Why not?
Yep.
Right? If you call that cultish to me, I'm like, okay, call me a cult person, but because I'm doing that and it works. And I've been doing it since Thoth told me that, and I believed him, and it works.
Amazing. So it does lead into my final question. What do we do? What, like, if we want to kind of like wake up, because, most of the people listening to this, they got a job, they're doing their thing. They're trying to navigate reality to the best they can within the effery that we have here. What's your like tips on just
I'm only going to give one.
Okay.
Take responsibility for your energy. And the first thing you can do to experiment with that is in 17 breaths, you can figure out how to change that. And we've just recorded the Merkaba meditation on YouTube, and I put it on my YouTube channel. In 17 breaths, you have the opportunity to wake up your Ba energy and start living a real life, not a life of illusion. Okay? If you choose to do that, your life will change. Because when you wake up your Ba energy, listen, it's like a weasel popping its head up into a different dimension. Other entities are watching that dimension, and they initiate you, or they're going to pop you back down if you're not ready. So if you're doing bad things and you think you're going to go be a light being, that doesn't work. Okay? You're going to have to purify your consciousness and subjugate your ego if you want to play this game. Right? You know that. I know that. That's the two requisites to having an alchemical initiation experience.
Heck
you
yes.
You can spend your whole life doing that. But if you do the Merkaba in 17 breaths and you commit to doing that, and if you have to do it every day for 2 weeks, do it. It only takes 5 minutes. See what happens. Because then if you wake up that Ba energy, it's like taking even though it's the wrong color pill in the Matrix, you will wake up and you will have the encounter with the energetic entities from other dimensions that are here that want to see you ascend out of this morass. But it's up to you. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. You have to choose that, like what you've done. You choose ascension, right? You don't hand this off to a group and say, well, I believe your dogma, so I'm going to be saved. It's all good. That doesn't work. Truth is a pathless land, and your path is different than everyone else's. And you have to choose that reality that you want, right? And anybody who's chasing their chakras or trying to wake up, they've done that. They're doing that. Just keep doing that. There's nothing more to do except know you're eternal and get rid of your fear.
Incredible, man. Yeah.
Fear is the enemy. Fear is the enemy. It'll keep you from changing your mind, changing your clothes because somebody doesn't like it or whatever else. Get rid of the fear and live your life.
Yeah, man, that was really amazing, powerful, beautiful close. The only thing I wanted to add on to it, because I thought about it before, is like the simplicity that you're sharing of just the searching and seeking is like 2 levels of consciousness. And one is freedom and ascension. And the other one is kind of like, say, just, are you looking to, wake up and, or no, is it more?
Not every seeker becomes a finder. Okay.
Yeah.
One's running around.
Honest seeking.
Looking out there. Let's go to Tibet. I got to go study in India. No.
Yeah.
No. It's right here, right now, in the now. You don't have to go anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
And in the Masters of the Far East, and actually the Lost Teachings of Atlantis, he talks about find universal consciousness right here, right now, where you are. It's not out there. It's right in here. Find that first, and then wherever you go, whatever. It doesn't matter. You take yourself everywhere you go. So that's just my 2 cents on that. So you can be a finder as a seeker, but I see a lot of seekers be seekers their whole lives and not finders.
Yeah. Go in. It's here. That's what that's what that teaching says. Yeah, man, it's been a privilege, my friend. I hope to have you back. You're welcome any day, anytime. I just definitely tell people to check out I'm going to do your meditation actually right as soon as we jump off.
Yeah, actually it's recorded with Krista. Krista does the vocals on it. And I gave a little link in there. You go like 3 minutes and 45 seconds into it because she gives instruction first, but you can go right to it. And it's less than 7 minutes. You'll be done.
Yeah. And I heard it was like 17 seconds to affect energy, like to become the creator force. I don't know if you've heard of anything like that. 17 seconds of direct, pumping it out. Then that's what it takes for us to kind of filter through and get that charge going.
Yeah. Well, we modified it slightly. I got involved with something called rebirthing. way back when I was studying sacred geometry, where it talks about connecting the breath. And once I did structure work and realized you're activating the Ida and Pingala nadis in your sphenopalatine ganglia, that's where that energy is happening. So breathing through your nose with this meditation is very important. If you just try one thing, if you just hyperventilate real quickly through your nose, not your mouth, until it starts burning, and then hold your breath for just a few seconds and then let it out, watch the state change you get in your energy, okay? Because what you've just done is changed the blood gas mixture of your body and activated the energetic sphenopalatine ganglia up inside here, where actually it leads to your third eye, but it's actually up in your nose. Well, this is part of what we do with the Merkaba, is breathe in 7 and out 7 through your nose, okay? And if you can do it fast if you want, and it'll probably have the same effect, but if you do it, a count of 7, so you get fully the right mixture of the oxygen and the nitrogen and all that in your system. When you do the pauses, they're not long pauses, less than 10 seconds, and you experience this energetic change as a function of your breath, it's very powerful, very powerful. So I hope you like it. Take some notes for me. Let me know what happens for you. And if you get good at it, you may want to teach it to people, because it is one thing that you can do to help get people in touch with their energy body. Also, things like reading the power of now and understanding that the body gives you access to the now as one of those portals. Just paying attention to your body, like, how does your back feel right now? How does your head, your neck? Do you feel right with gravity? That's another entrance into the now. So those are other things that you can do. And then we can get way more advanced into learning energy body equations and structure work and starfire gold and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, I think we're approaching that window very shortly. I mean, very shortly. Like, if I had to guess in the next 5 years, I think it's going to happen. That's amazing to know that's happening in our lifetime. So I think you got very little time to think about getting your energy as far as it can get, your chakras as high as they can go, because in the next incarnation, you're going to get to go the next step farther. It doesn't end. There's thousands of steps back to the creator of all through the evolution of consciousness. So think about that. So there's a lot of work to do. It's all learning, but it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile, especially when it comes to differentiating the self from the not self, because that's where all the religions come to their junction point, is that place.
Right. Amazing, brother. Well, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the work, man. Thanks for sharing all that stuff. And
well, I appreciate you too. You've written a book. We didn't talk much about that. So I see good things coming for your path, and you just keep going. You're sharing light. That's what you need to be doing. You're serving reality by doing that, because there is no other reality. You're not of the delusion that you're going to be able to change everybody and wake everybody up, because that's not the truth. You're having an experience. You share your map. You enjoy sharing the map, and hopefully some people get benefit for that. If they don't, listen, how many people do you think Jesus actually encountered? They're the being that was, that we call the Savior, right? How many do you think he actually encountered with no internet, no telephone? In the low thousands, maybe hundreds in 30 years, So we don't have to take on the whole world and hope that we raise them all up when it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen by design. And a lot of it has to do with Enki's design for us, which I still think is pretty fascinating. So with that said, I want to say on behalf of all the people watching this on Seven Planet Broadcasting that you all know and have heard all this stuff. So support Matt and support all the other people that are on light missions, because they're not here for the money. Right.
Thanks, man.
Okay, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, let's say bye to everybody and go take a break. I know your bladder's probably ready. Peace out.
Yeah. Take care. See you guys.
You good.
Bye.